Earlier, I used the phrase TCO, total cost of ownership. Now that might be a phrase you've heard before when buying products that have an operational cost associated with them. And that's another element of what makes up a technical product. If the performance of a product increases or decreases associated operational costs, treat it as a technical product that requires greater analysis before purchasing. Here's a good way to visualize TCO. If you think about an iceberg floating in the sea, you're only seeing a fraction of the entire iceberg. Most of it is below the surface, and before you decide on a course of action, you need to know how big it is. If you confuse a technical product for a commodity, you'll only see the purchase price, and when you make a judgment based exclusively on that, you're not factoring in the product's impact on operational costs. What are those operational costs when discussing air filters? First off, that varies according to the industry, but I've read about 60% of the total spending for Fortune 500 companies is their payroll. It's fair to say employees are a company's #1 asset. And the #1 expense of not understanding the TCO of air filters is a reduction in productivity. One estimate shows bad air quality costs the US GDP about 5%, which totals in the billions of dollars. To be fair, it's not easy to calculate that for each individual facility, but the number tells us that it exists. Another cost is when air filters need to be changed out. And depending on the size of your facility, that could require a significant amount of labor hours. And if that's your maintenance staff, those labor hours are no longer available for more cost-effective tasks. And dirty filters have to be disposed of properly, and depending on where you are, landfill space is at a premium, and that's one expense not expected to come down anytime soon. But the biggest direct expense, and one that can be measured easily, is energy. The performance of an air filter has a tremendous impact on how much energy a facility requires to operate on a daily basis. In fact, when you break out all costs associated with an air filtration program, the cost of the filter itself is a relatively small percentage of the overall cost, usually 15% or less, but energy is typically 70%. And who knows what the cost will be in the future. These are just some of the reasons why you need to look past the price of the product and understand what the effect on operational costs is. That's TCO. That's the total cost of ownership.